And what this one shows is it's kind of a heat map of the average US monthly electric bills by state. Texas kind of pops out at this one. It's not the very highest electric bills in the country, but it's in the top, quartile. And this is an interesting one because this is where we need to distinguish between rates and bills, right? Texas rates are actually below the national average. Our bills are actually above the national average, and that's a function of it's a really hot state. And so we use a whole lot of air conditioning, and that's 1A. 1B, not to be lost, is we do a lot less energy efficiency than other states. So there's a whole lot of energy waste that is going into these very, very high bills.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think there's this general perception that electricity bills are only high in a couple regions, notably New England and California. And while some element of that is true, I think we can see that there are many regions across the country that are struggling with this issue of utility bills, exactly in part for the reason that you talked about, and the fact that bills are what people ultimately pay and have sensitivity towards, not rates. Rates are more relevant perhaps for commercial and industrial customers, but for your average residential consumer, you care about your utility bills. So it does raise some questions around what we can do on rates, what we can do on energy usage, what we can do on bills. But I think it's very clear that we need to be very specific when we talk about energy affordability and for whom and in what metrics we're using to define that.
I also want to point out that in Texas, we just had a slide up that showed the average US rate is something like 16 cents. Last I checked, it was a month or two ago, but I don't imagine it's much different right now. The state does have a website to help people shop for electricity. Again, we have different kinds of utilities. If you're in Austin, San Antonio, or Co-op area, you can't shop. But if you're in Houston or Dallas or Corpus or Laredo or any number of other places within Texas, you can. And you can typically find 13, 14 cents on there. You want to be careful, read the fine print. Some of them have a minimum usage. There's all sorts of gimmicks out there. I have done a couple of podcasts with retailers like Base Power and Octopus that are offering different kinds of rate structures, including things for like EV owners. I think some of the big ones, the TXUs and Reliance and that, have some interesting rate offerings as well.